Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a book video. I feel like this is one of the only things I've been able to focus on the last few months is reading. I even put on my Murder, She Wrote vintage sweatshirt. I got this off of Depop, the American side of things, so I think I paid about $30 for it, and yeah, it's oversized and I love it's got an embroidered sort of shiny element to it. I love Murder, She Wrote. I've been slowly working my way through watching the TV shows as well. I think I'm on season 3. And I've got a few Murder, She Wrote books to show you here. So yeah, I thought I would just do, probably was going to be quite a long video, so grab yourself a beverage and a snack, and just go through what I've been reading. There is a little bit of something here for everyone. There's non-fiction, there's murder mystery, young adult, historical, crime. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Winnie is moping around here as well. Hi. And I think I did do a video of her 2-year update. Now she's 2, so she's gonna be having a little sniffles around. And don't be fooled by this jumper, it is quite hot here in the UK at the moment, so I'm doing it for the video. Let's start, shall we, with the Murder, She Wrote books. So I've read 2 or 3 this year. I think I've read 3 Murder, She Wrote books this year. I'm slowly trying to work my way through reading these. Most of them I purchase on Vinted when I find them, but I do pick them up here and there online, from Waterstones usually. So the 2 we've got is Killer on the Court. I read this earlier this year. I'm pretty sure I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Let me grab my Goodreads up. I always have my Goodreads linked down below. It's the best place to find me if you want really updated to the moment what I'm reading. Yes, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. So this is set on an oceanside sort of village. Jessica is going to visit her nephew Grady. Him and his wife are staying at Grady's wife's sort of business, her boss's sort of seaside apartment villas type thing, and Jessica decides to go down, coinciding it with a trip to go see her publishers in New York. And while she's there, obviously one of Grady's wife Donna, her boss, gets killed, and so it's sort of following that and the aftermath really, and obviously finding out who killed him. But I really like this. I loved the setting and the location. It had very much the Hamptons vibe. I liked the aspect where you saw Grady and his son Frank and that sort of family feel, and I just really liked it. So it's definitely one of my favourite Murder, She Wrote books. Yeah, I love any that are set sort of more around Jessica and her family, whether that be in Cabot Cove or this is sort of more in a New York seaside town. So I read that, and then the one I've read most recently is The Queen's Jewels, and this is set on the Queen Mary 2 ship, and Jessica goes on board to sort of do some talks, and while she's there, people get murdered, and it also has sort of a diamond heist element to it. There's been some jewel thieving in London before she gets on the ship, and sort of one of the main suspects, the partner of this guy that got killed, is on the ship with Jessica, and there's some other of Jessica's friends who are sort of going under different aliases because they're sort of undercover, whether it be for the police or the MI5, and so not everyone is who they seem in this book. Pretty much everyone has a double personality that they're portraying aside from Jessica. So yeah, it was interesting to read something completely different setting wise, for her being on a boat, because I've not read any before. It had that sort of British element to it, which was kind of fun. I gave this one 4 stars. It did take me quite a long time to read, and I think that's more so me not dedicating the time to read, because once I sort of got halfway through and then really invested the time. I sort of flew through it. The book I read was The Doctor of Hiroshima by this doctor here. I'm not going to pronounce his name because I will get that wrong. And it's basically this man's diary of the aftermath of the Hiroshima bomb, back when it went off. When did it go off? Was it like the 40s, 50s? And this is a side of like World War II that I'd never really read about before. Obviously I read a lot about the Holocaust, Central Europe, and sort of more Germany's impact, but this was very much, you know, Hiroshima, Japan, and the US element in it, and I think it's really hard to visualize for us today what it would have been like, what the devastation was after that bomb, and what effects it had on the people and the surroundings. I mean, you can see just sort of by the picture, everything is sort of completely stripped. I would have liked this to have had some pictures in it, not gonna lie. I think that would have really helped to visualize it, and I did have to sort of go online and sort of look little bits and pieces up, but it was really interesting. It sort of very quickly talked about like the bomb, and then it was definitely all of like the aftermath. And obviously he's a doctor, so it was very much sort of around the local hospital, how he himself was affected by the radiation, and how he felt, you know, the drive to want to get up and help others, even though he wasn't in the best of condition himself. So it was an interesting read. As the book went on, I sort of lost interest. I'm not sure whether that was due to the writing style, or just it wasn't points that I was interested in as much as sort of the start of the book and the immediate aftermath. But it would be interesting to read more books on sort of first-hand accounts from the bomb. And I mean, he was very close to the epicenter of it. It was really interesting because I've never read anything about this event before, and I flew through this book. The book I want to talk about is The Housemaid's Secret by Freida McFadden. This is the second book, following on from The Housemaid. Again, in this book it follows Millie as she's going into more sort of housemaid jobs, and following on from the first book. I won't talk too much because it may sort of spoil the first book and sort of the outcome, but very much has the same feeling to it of her trying to help and rescue the people that she's working for. And again, like the first book, towards the end we get a completely different perspective from another character that we read about, who initially we feel sorry for, and then we're like, how can she do that? And then we're like, okay, we see that the plot behind this. Really twisty and turny, not quite as good as the first book, but I still really enjoy it. She's just released actually her third book, which I think is set a little bit further on from these first two, and again I'll be interested to read that because they are really gripping. I just fly through these, but it does, I am noticing sort of some of the same plot features, and Millie as a character was actually really frustrating in this book. Just, you think, have you not sort of learned your lesson from the first time? So yeah, I would recommend reading the second one if you did like the first one, but I do want to read more of Freida McFadden's other work and see what else she has to offer. I did give that book 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I've got to review is From Black to Blue by Jonathan Cox. This is the second book in the Nostril series. This was a gifted book, as was the first book that I got and reviewed. I will leave a link down below to my original review of his first book. But this is basically fictional work based on sort of some real life aspects of Jonathan's time working for the police force. Everything supposedly in the books though is sort of fabricated and he's made up. And this follows the same character as the first book, so Constable Chris, and set within the 80s, and I really enjoyed the first book. I flew through it. had a really heartwarming ending for me, like, or a really upsetting ending, shall I say. And this sort of follows on. You get some of the same characters back involved, and just sort of the antics that go on, the corruption. Yeah, I don't really know what, I did read this a good few months ago, so it's hard for me to pinpoint on like specific aspects of it, but I do want to pick up the third book, sort of complete. I think it's possibly a trilogy of these ones. I think, well, he's got 7 books. I'm not quite sure if they all follow Chris as a character. But yeah, it's very much sort of set of its time in the 80s. There's some aspects of and topics that very much people have different viewpoints on today. For instance, there's towards the end, I remember there's a topic in regards to AIDS, which obviously has a very different viewpoint on it now, but back then it was really quite a serious topic. Suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, convinced his own arrest is imminent and racked with guilt, PC Pritchard fears his world is about to come crashing in. An unexpected turn of events, however, put his true character to the test. So that was that book. Did read the mammoth book, that is Midnight Sun, and actually I flew through this. It's been quite a while since I've read any of the Twilight books, and I thought, do you know what, I'm 4 books ahead on my Goodreads goal, let me delve into this mammoth sort of 700 page book. And if you don't know, Midnight Sun is basically Twilight but told from Edward's point of view, and let me tell you, I love this. I ate this book up. Obviously I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I love the Twilight series. I was fully invested in it as a teenager. Read all the books, all the sub-books. But I really, really enjoyed this. Obviously we know the story, but I felt that this gave you so much more information. Not only regarding Edward and Bella, but the whole Cullen family. Whereas I feel Twilight just gives you obviously Bella's perspective, because Edward can read minds. You get his, you get all of Bella's friends, you get the Cullen family, and obviously you see how much of a struggle it is not being able to read into Bella's mind. You see sort of, you get the true realization of, you know, he is a vampire, he has still the death thoughts running through him, he is a monster, as it were. And, you know, just things that they don't talk about naturally in Twilight because it's set from Bella's sort of naive perspective. And I then did go on to reread Twilight. And it was really interesting to kind of compare the two, and also to read it again and compare it to the film, because there's so much in these that aren't in the film or that are different in the film when it comes to sort of the plot line. Whereas this, you definitely felt like you were reading, you know, a teenage mind. This very much felt like you were reading a much older mind, like someone in their 20s or 30s. But what was really interesting is obviously, you know, I sort of read this when I was an age a little bit younger than Bella, and then, you know, I'm not a 100-year-old vampire, but I'm sort of reading this and the writing is much more mature, and sort of more relatable to someone now in my late 20s, and that I think is obviously a natural progression for Stephanie Meyer's writing skills, but also really well reflects Edward as a character and having that mature mind to him. So I really enjoyed rereading these again, or rereading Midnight Sun for the first time, and I will hopefully throughout the year be working my way through Twilight again. I know Stephanie Meyer is planning apparently to re-release some other books, so fingers crossed we get something from Jacob's point of view, because I was always Team Jacob, but very much this has given me sort of a new perspective on the Edward side of things. And then the last book that I will touch on very briefly is the one I'm reading at the moment, very different from all the others, and that's The Brothers of Auschwitz. It's written by Malka Adler, and it's the true story of 2 brothers that were taken during the war from their country. They lived in Hungary, they were split from all the rest of their family, and from what I gather at the start, I think the brothers may have been split, and then obviously at some point they find each other again, and they then ended up living in Israel. So I'm only 40 pages in, So far the writing style's a bit difficult for me. I mean, I'm flowing through it quite easily, but it is told from the two brothers' perspectives. There's a lot of name changes, but we shall see what I think of that by the end. And yeah, that is all I've got to report on today. Some of the things I've been reading over the last few months. I'm really trying to get through my TBR, really focus on reading more, and varying my reading. Some books that I am looking forward to coming out. Obviously I want to read the other Handmaids or the Housemaids book. What else is coming out? There is a autobiography from Lisa Marie Presley, and her daughter Riley sort of finished that off, so I'll be interested to read that later in the year. There's the Hunger Games, another prequel coming out, told from Haymitch's point of view, so again I'll be really interested to read that. And yeah, that's sort of all that's on my radar at the moment, but if there's anything else that's sort of your book of the moment or something you've just finished and loved, let me know down below, and maybe I'll add it to my TBR list. Thank you for watching. I know this has probably been a bit of a long video, but thank you for sticking with it, and I will see you very soon. Bye guys.